What if the breakfast you have trusted for years, the one your doctor approved, the one you eat every single morning believing it is protecting your health, is the exact reason your blood sugar refuses to come down? And what if the food sitting in your refrigerator right now, the one millions of people with diabetes were told to avoid, is actually one of the most powerful blood sugar stabilizing tools in nutritional medicine when prepared and combined correctly? I am not talking about an exotic supplement or an expensive protocol. I am talking about eggs. And the truth about eggs and blood sugar that most people with diabetes have never been told is costing them real numbers every single morning without them realizing it. Here is what makes this so consequential. The fear around eggs in the diabetes community was built on research that has since been comprehensively re-examined and largely contradicted by more rigorous methodology. But the outdated advice remained in circulation long after the science moved on. And the patients who followed that advice, who removed eggs from their breakfast and replaced them with what they were told was healthier, frequently ended up with worse blood sugar control, not better. Because what replaced the eggs was the actual problem, and nobody explained why. My name is Dr. Kenji Sato. I am a preventive medicine physician and longevity researcher with 30 years in clinical practice. I have worked with thousands of patients managing type 2 diabetes and prediabetes, and one pattern I have observed with a consistency that I find clinically striking is this. The patients who struggle most with morning blood sugar numbers are frequently not the ones making dramatic dietary errors. They are the ones following advice that was given in good faith, but was built on an incomplete understanding of how breakfast protein affects the entire day's metabolic trajectory. That incomplete understanding is what I am going to correct today. Here is exactly what I will cover. Why the standard healthy breakfast recommended to most people with diabetes produces the blood sugar pattern it was supposed to prevent. The specific molecular mechanism by which dietary protein slows glucose absorption and reduces post-meal blood sugar spikes. The complete truth about eggs and cholesterol, including what the current peer-reviewed evidence actually says, versus what most patients were told a decade ago. How to prepare eggs in the specific ways that preserve their blood sugar benefits versus the common preparation mistakes that eliminate those benefits entirely. The optimal food combinations that extend blood sugar stability for 4 to 5 hours after breakfast, and the timing strategy that uses dinner protein to lower your fasting blood sugar the following morning. If you are finding here what your clinical appointments have not had time to explain, subscribe now. Every week I cover one mechanism, the complete science behind it, and the precise practical protocol. It costs nothing, and it is the only way the platform will show you what comes next. Before we talk about eggs specifically, I need to explain one mechanism because without understanding this, nothing else about breakfast and blood sugar will fully make sense. When you have type 2 diabetes, your body's ability to manage rapid glucose entry into the bloodstream has been progressively compromised. Your insulin response is slower than it should be. Your peripheral insulin sensitivity is reduced, and the result is that a rapid glucose load from a high-carbohydrate breakfast produces a blood sugar spike that your system cannot contain efficiently. This is why post-meal blood sugar numbers in the 200 range are so common in people with diabetes who eat what they have been told is a healthy breakfast. Here is what most patients are never told. Dietary protein consumed alongside carbohydrates does not simply add nutrition to the meal. It actively modifies how quickly glucose from those carbohydrates enters your bloodstream through a specific and measurable mechanism. Protein stimulates the secretion of GLP-1, glucagon-like peptide 1, from your intestinal L cells. GLP-1 slows gastric emptying, the rate at which food leaves your stomach and enters the small intestine for absorption. When gastric emptying is slowed, glucose from digested carbohydrates enters the bloodstream gradually, rather than in a single rapid surge. Instead of a sharp spike that demands an immediate, large insulin response, you get a slower controlled rise that your compromised insulin system can actually manage. This is not a minor effect. Studies measuring post-meal glucose in controlled conditions consistently show that adding high-quality protein to a carbohydrate-containing meal reduces the peak glucose response by a clinically meaningful margin. Eggs are one of the most complete and bioavailable protein sources that exist in any standard diet. Two whole eggs provide approximately 12 grams of high-quality complete protein containing all 9 essential amino acids in proportions that your body can use with exceptional efficiency. And the glycemic index of eggs is effectively 0. Eggs by themselves produce no meaningful rise in blood glucose. When combined correctly with moderate carbohydrates, they activate the GLP-1-mediated gastric slowing that converts a high-spike breakfast into a controlled rise breakfast. This is the mechanism, and it is the reason that the breakfast composition, not just the ingredients, determines your blood sugar trajectory for the entire morning. Now, let me address the cholesterol question directly, because it is the reason millions of people with diabetes removed eggs from their diet and replace them with foods that worsen their blood sugar control. The concern about dietary cholesterol and cardiovascular risk was based on research methodology that subsequent decades of more rigorous investigation have substantially revised. The core finding that has emerged consistently across large prospective studies and meta-analyses is this. For the majority of people, dietary cholesterol, the cholesterol in food, has a minimal effect on circulating LDL cholesterol levels. Your liver produces cholesterol independently and adjusts its own production in response to dietary intake through a feedback mechanism. What most significantly raises small dense LDL, the particle associated with cardiovascular risk, is not dietary cholesterol, but refined carbohydrates and trans fats. The egg yolk specifically contains choline, a nutrient essential for hepatic fat metabolism that most people, particularly those with type 2 diabetes, consume in insufficient quantities. It contains vitamin D, which multiple studies have shown is directly associated with improved insulin sensitivity at the cellular level, meaning your cells respond more effectively to the insulin your pancreas produces. It contains lutein and zeaxanthin, carotenoids that protect retinal tissue from the oxidative damage that chronically elevated blood sugar produces over years. And it contains B-complex vitamins that support peripheral nerve function, which matters enormously for anyone concerned about diabetic neuropathy. Removing the yolk removes all of these. You are left with protein and almost nothing else. Eat the whole egg. The nutrients are in the yolk. Let me tell you about a patient I will call Daniela. She came to my clinic approximately 10 months ago at 64 years old, 8 years into a type 2 diabetes diagnosis. She sat down, placed a folder of lab results on the desk between us, and before I said anything, she began to explain her situation with the particular exhaustion of someone who has been trying very hard for a very long time without understanding why it is not working. She had stopped eating eggs almost 2 years earlier on the advice of a previous physician who was concerned about cholesterol. She had replaced her breakfast with instant oatmeal with honey and a ripe banana, plus a glass of fresh orange juice. She had been told this was a healthy diabetic breakfast. She walked every week. She took her medication without missing doses. Her fasting blood sugar remained between 155 and 175 every morning. Her A1C was 8.2%, and her cholesterol had not improved. It had worsened. When she described her breakfast in detail, I understood the mechanism immediately. Instant oatmeal with honey and a ripe banana, plus orange juice, is a large bolus of rapidly absorbed carbohydrates with virtually no protein and no significant fat to slow gastric emptying. Her post-breakfast blood sugar was reaching 210 to 220 within 30 minutes. And because there was no protein to sustain satiety, by 10 o'clock in the morning her blood sugar had crashed and she was hungry and craving carbohydrates again. Her pancreas never had a period of metabolic calm. The roller coaster ran all day. I explained the current science on eggs and cholesterol. I proposed one change: replace the oatmeal and juice breakfast with 2 whole eggs prepared without oil alongside half an avocado and a generous portion of vegetables. 2 weeks later, she called me. Her post-breakfast blood sugar was a 140, not 210. 140. She tested it 3 consecutive mornings to confirm. After 1 month, her fasting glucose had fallen from 165 to 142. After 3 months, her A1C had moved from 8.2% to 7.5%. Her LDL cholesterol had not risen. It had decreased slightly. The food she had removed from her diet to protect her heart had, when correctly incorporated, helped produce the improvements she had been unable to achieve without it. Now here is the complete practical protocol based on what the evidence supports. 2 to 3 whole eggs daily is the evidence-supported dose for most people with type 2 diabetes who do not have severe kidney disease or other specific contraindications requiring medical individualization. How you prepare them determines whether you receive the full benefit or partially undermine it. Let me be precise about each preparation method. Scrambled eggs in a non-stick pan without added oil. Eggs contain sufficient natural fat that they will not stick to a properly heated non-stick surface. Beat 2 eggs lightly with a small amount of water, pour into a medium heat pan, and stir gently for 2 to 3 minutes until just set but still slightly creamy. Overcooked scrambled eggs have reduced digestibility. You want them set but not rubbery. Boiled eggs are the most practical preparation method for people with demanding morning schedules. Place eggs in cold water, bring to a boil, then cook for 10 minutes for a fully set yolk or 6 minutes for a softer yolk. You can prepare 4 to 6 eggs the night before and store them in the refrigerator for up to 5 days. This removes all morning preparation time as a barrier to consistency. A vegetable omelet in a non-stick pan without oil. Beat 2 eggs, pour into a medium heat non-stick pan, and before the eggs fully set, add fresh spinach, diced tomato, sliced mushrooms, and any other non-starchy vegetables you have. Fold and cook for another 90 seconds. The vegetables contribute additional soluble fiber that further slows glucose absorption. They add volume and additional satiety without adding meaningful carbohydrate load. Now, here is what to combine with the eggs. This is where the 4 to 5 hour blood sugar stability comes from. Half a ripe avocado. The monounsaturated fat in avocado does not raise blood glucose. It contributes to the gastric slowing effect that extends blood sugar stability and provides sustained satiety through a fat-mediated mechanism distinct from the protein pathway. Avocado also provides potassium and magnesium, 2 minerals in which people with type 2 diabetes are frequently deficient and which both play roles in insulin signaling. Spinach or any leafy green. Spinach provides magnesium at meaningful concentrations. Multiple studies have found that magnesium deficiency is significantly more prevalent in people with type 2 diabetes than in the general population, and that magnesium status is independently associated with insulin sensitivity. Adding spinach to your eggs is not simply adding vegetables. It is addressing a specific micronutrient deficiency common in this population. Tomatoes, peppers, and mushrooms all are low in carbohydrate, high in fiber relative to their carbohydrate content, and rich in polyphenols that independently support glucose metabolism through antioxidant mechanisms. They add volume, flavor, and additional fiber without meaningfully affecting the post-meal glucose curve. If you feel you need something more substantial, 1 small slice of genuine whole grain bread, dense with visible seeds and a firm texture, not soft, fluffy commercial whole wheat bread, which is primarily refined flour with added color, is acceptable. But the sequence matters mechanistically. Eat the eggs first, then the bread. If you eat the bread first, glucose enters your bloodstream before the protein has established its gastric slowing effect. If you eat the eggs first, the GLP-1 mediated slowing is already active when the small amount of carbohydrate from the bread arrives. The impact on your blood sugar curve is measurably different based on sequence alone. Now, here is the dinner application that most patients find surprising when I explain it. When you eat high-quality protein at dinner in place of a carbohydrate-heavy evening meal, something specific happens during the overnight fasting period. Your liver, which produces and releases glucose continuously while you sleep through a process called hepatic glucose output, does so in a more moderate and controlled pattern when your pre-sleep metabolic environment is characterized by protein rather than elevated insulin from evening carbohydrate consumption. This translates for many patients into fasting blood sugar numbers that are 15 to 20 points lower the following morning compared to evenings when they ate rice, bread, or other starchy staples. 2 eggs with vegetables as a light dinner, no bread, is a practical application of this mechanism that takes less time to prepare than most carbohydrate-centered dinners and produces a measurable effect on your first blood sugar reading the following day. Let me tell you about a second patient I will call James. He was 58 years old, 5 years into a type 2 diabetes diagnosis, managing with metformin for 3 of those years. His A1C was 8.6%, fasting blood sugar averaged 178. He was a quiet man who placed his lab results on the desk without preamble and waited. His breakfast was 2 fried eggs with refried beans and 3 corn tortillas every morning. He believed he was eating well because he was including eggs and beans, both protein sources. The problem was threefold. Frying the eggs in oil added a saturated fat load that temporarily impairs insulin receptor sensitivity. The refried beans in their traditional preparation added substantial fat and a moderate glycemic load. And 3 corn tortillas provided a carbohydrate quantity that exceeded what his compromised insulin response could manage efficiently, particularly combined with the fat-induced receptor impairment from the frying. The post-meal blood sugar spike was consistent and substantial. The change I proposed was specific and minimal. Boiled or scrambled eggs without oil instead of fried. Whole beans with minimal added fat instead of refried. 1 corn tortilla instead of 3 with added vegetables for volume and additional fiber. That was the complete initial intervention. 3 weeks later, James came to his follow-up appointment, and for the first time since I had met him, he showed a genuine expression of something other than resignation. His morning numbers were running between 145 and 135. They had not been below 170 in years. He had changed only what I described, nothing else. After 4 months, his A1C was 7.8%. His primary care physician asked what he had changed. James answered with the simple directness that defined him. I changed how I prepare my eggs. Now here are the 4 preparation mistakes I see most consistently that eliminate the benefit before it can work. The first mistake is frying eggs in oil, even olive oil, even small amounts. This mistake is extremely common because olive oil has a legitimate reputation as a healthy fat in the context of cold use on salads and as a food finishing oil. That reputation is earned and accurate, but when you heat olive oil at frying temperatures, it undergoes oxidation that partially compromises its beneficial properties and adds a saturated fat load to the meal that temporarily impairs insulin receptor function. The egg already contains its own natural fat. Use a non-stick pan with no added oil. You need nothing else. The second mistake is pairing eggs with fruit juice, including freshly squeezed juice that is marketed as natural and healthy. For a person with type 2 diabetes, fresh orange juice is functionally equivalent to sugar water with vitamins. The fiber of the whole fruit, which is what slows glucose absorption, is eliminated entirely in the juicing process. What remains is concentrated fructose and glucose entering your bloodstream rapidly with no fiber to slow it. A whole orange with its fiber matrix intact is a completely different metabolic event than orange juice. The juice bypasses the very mechanism, fiber-mediated gastric slowing, that makes the whole fruit a reasonable option. The third mistake is adding processed cheese or cured meats. Ham, sausage, bacon, and processed cheese slices are high in sodium, often contain additives and preservatives, and deliver a saturated fat load that contributes to insulin receptor impairment. If you want to add cheese, a small amount of fresh cheese or genuine cottage cheese is a reasonable option in moderate quantities. The fourth mistake is eating the carbohydrate component of the meal first. I described the mechanism above. The sequence determines whether the protein's gastric slowing effect is active when glucose from carbohydrates arrives. Eggs first, any carbohydrate component second. This sequencing principle applies at every meal, not just breakfast. A note on medication interactions. If you take metformin, eggs do not interfere with your medication in any way. You can make this change with confidence. If you take insulin, Inform your physician when you make this dietary change because increased protein intake can improve insulin effectiveness, and your glucose numbers may respond more strongly than your current dosing anticipates. This is not a problem. It is a reason to keep your medical team informed so they can adjust your dosing appropriately if needed. Never make insulin dosing decisions independently based on dietary changes. Always maintain that communication. On the question of egg quality, pasture-raised eggs from hens with outdoor access tend to have higher omega-3 fatty acid content and higher vitamin D levels than conventional eggs. If these are accessible and within your budget, they are the superior option. But if they are not accessible or not affordable, conventional supermarket eggs remain an extraordinarily nutritious and beneficial food for blood sugar management. Do not let the perfect be the enemy of the good here. The benefit of incorporating eggs correctly into your daily breakfast far exceeds the marginal nutritional difference between conventional and pasture-raised. Here's what I want you to leave with today. Eggs are not your enemy. They never were. What may have been working against your blood sugar numbers was the information you were given, the preparation methods you were using, and the foods you were combining them with. When you remove oil from the preparation, when you combine eggs with avocado and vegetables instead of juice and toast, when you eat the eggs before any carbohydrate component, and when you consider eggs at dinner as a tool for improving your fasting blood sugar the following morning, you are giving your metabolic system a tool that is mechanistically specific, evidence-supported, and available in your refrigerator right now, the complete morning protocol. 2 whole eggs scrambled without oil or boiled the night before, half an avocado, a generous portion of spinach, tomatoes, mushrooms, or any non-starchy vegetables, 1 small slice of dense whole grain bread if needed, eaten after the eggs, no fruit juice, black coffee, or green tea without dairy. And if you want something mid-morning before lunch, 1 hard-boiled egg prepared the night before alongside a small handful of nuts provides a combination that produces virtually no blood sugar response and sustains satiety until your next meal. Your body is capable of responding better than your current numbers suggest. It has not failed. It has been working with incomplete information. Give it the right inputs, prepared correctly, combined correctly, sequenced correctly, and the response often begins faster than most people expect. If this gave you something your last appointment did not have time to explain, share it with someone managing diabetes who has been avoiding eggs on outdated advice. And watch my next video where I cover the specific mid-morning and afternoon snacking patterns that undo the blood sugar stability that a correct breakfast creates, including the 2 snack combinations that most people with diabetes consider safe, but that produce the afternoon glucose spikes driving their pre-dinner numbers. I will see you then.